Hi, everyone, and welcome to Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today we have Evalena Rose joining us on the show. Evalena Rose helps people open their hearts and embody their soul essence through MetaTherapy, channeled readings, and energetic healing. In private practice for 45 years, she serves awakening seekers, especially healers, therapists, and entrepreneurs. She is deeply versed in trauma recovery after decades working on her own, and often helps lightworkers clear their paths to live vibrantly in their intuitive and authentic natures. For 38 years, Evalena has channeled ascended masters known as the Council of 12, working collaboratively with individuals, couples, and groups to live fully in their power and passions. Evalena, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
So excited to have you. I've been following you now since, early 2021. I found you during an online retreat that happened during lockdown, and I've been popping in every now and then to your YouTube channel and looking at what you have going on and listening to some of your channels. Today, we're going to be discussing quantum healing of trauma, which I think is really important, especially now, coming out of COVID. I think there's been a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of people waking up these days. And waking up is looking at our trauma, is going back and healing those wounds and kind of unraveling what we learned before. What led you to doing this work, Evalena?
My own need to heal my own trauma. I was so affected by what happened to me as a child that I got into my mid-20s and I didn't want to be on the planet at all. And fortunately, I told the right person, someone who also didn't want to be on the planet. She was a therapist, and she had researched what medications to take your life. And the only reason she lived is she went home happy. And people broke in, got her to the hospital. She was very upset.
Wow.
But she encouraged me. She took me home with her when I told her how much I was not wanting to be here, and fed me good food. And we sat in front of the fireplace depressed together and supported each other in coming back to a life we wanted to live. And so for me, it was really working through the trauma. And she actually, trickster woman, came in and she said to me, I really think you should do therapy. And I thought it wouldn't be any good. And she said, well, I'll tell you what, if you kill yourself, you can't then do therapy. But if you do therapy, you could still kill yourself. And if you want to, after 6 months of therapy, I'll help you. That's why it started. I thought I had my ticket out. And it was my ticket in.
I'm glad that you decided to stay, and I'm glad you chose you. And what did you learn that you have now been able to pass on to your clients?
I learned that healing complex trauma, which is what we're calling PTSD, where the trauma is pretty continuous through childhood, that it takes time and it takes a village. The more ways that someone's been traumatized, the more they need to bring in a massage person, maybe acupuncture to balance their nervous system. They need to meditate, journal, add practices. It becomes almost like a way of life to reclaim who you are behind all that trauma. And the more that people are willing to do that work, the more they get themselves back. And it takes time. I do a lot of work with what they now call parts, the inner family system. I think of it as subpersonalities. I've worked with people who are actually so split they're what people call multiple personality. Now it's called dissociative disorder. Because I think we have to reclaim all the pieces that get caught in the trauma, because there's no one there to help us process it or understand it. There were, it wouldn't be complex PTSD.
Right.
And so it's being that adult for your inner kids that help them understand it's over and I'm safe now, and love can be safe, and to really bring them into current time and into your heart.
I love that. Reclaiming yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not an easy task to reclaim yourself. I know coming out of trauma, a lot of people, including myself, you don't know what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, what it is that you like to do as a person, because you're so used to being in another state of mind.
Right.
Kind of walk through our listeners, what is fully reclaiming yourself?
It exists on so many levels. I actually feel, I want to give a framework that our souls choose our childhoods, our experiences, because they want to learn certain lessons. And it's not like you get over it, it's that you keep learning the lessons from that experience. I'm still learning and growing. And this is 50 some years into my work, my personal healing work. So it's claiming your right to have a spiritual life, have a practice. It's claiming your body. And that's why body work and yoga and Tai Chi and all these things are so important. Claiming your body. And then claiming the parts of you that are caught in the trauma. So for many years, I actually was trained partly by survivors in how to do the work. And for many years, we were helping people touch into the memory, relive a part of it, what they call abreact, feel it out, release it, and then come back to current time. And then one day, one of my people I'd worked with for years, I don't call them clients because they're not mine. One of the people I've worked with for years said to the person I was channeling, the being I was channeling, Aphrodite, it's not fair. She says, we spend our whole childhood with this horrible stuff happening, and then we spend our adulthood getting over it. There's got to be a better way. And the goddess said, we'll take it under advisement. They grow too. So in about 10 days, we were doing this soul retrieval. So you see the scene where a part's caught in time, but the person who's healing becomes the adult that's resourced, brings in their essence, comes into their heart, grounded, and then invite Divine Mother to go with that adult into the scene, go to the child, love them up, help them know, I'm here for you, I've come to take care of you, I'd love to always take care of you, I'm the adult you've grown up into, and then ask if they want to come live in her or his heart. And they almost always say yes, or a little therapy with Divine Mother, they say yes, or at least they'll try it. And then we have Divine Mother bring the child and the adult all the way through space and time, all the way through space and time into the heart chakra, and have the angels make the perfect room in the heart for that aged person, child. And sometimes a shower of light in their bed, and then a big rocking chair for Divine Mother to hold them and the adult. They breathe in the love and offer all the pain to the mother. And now the trauma's in the past and the soul essence is in now. And it creates way more rapid recovery. And once people learn to do it, they can keep doing it with themselves.
I think that's a beautiful way to bring in the parts of our souls that we've lost along the way. Yeah. How did you come upon this version of soul retrieval?
Well, through her asking and through working with guides. When I started my private practice, I felt I could never know enough to be alone in the room with people and work on their lives. And so I took a lot of workshops, including meeting my spirit guides. And so very often this might be a good time or not yet, or like today, it was knowing that we needed to retrieve an older part of a person before we could retrieve the very young parts.
Interesting.
So I'm feeling kind of walked along in the work. It's true in my therapy, but especially when I'm channeling. They are maestros of timing.
I love that. And what a gift to have so many helpers along the way. You mentioned claiming your body. And I know in a lot of trauma, that is part of the process, is coming back to that embodiment and reclaiming your physical body. I know a lot of women, one of their first steps in reclaiming their self is getting strong in a gym, like going to a gym, increasing their muscle strength so they can physically feel stronger in order to heal the rest of themselves. How else can we, facilitate reclaiming our body, becoming embodied again, and, claiming ourselves again?
Ecstatic dance is an important practice. I do it 2 or 3 times a week. The way to keep your body able to move for you is move your body. And there are like soul motion leaders guide you through a healing process. Every Sunday, I get a little more of me back from the dance that I do. That's one way. I often will have people suggest they go out in the woods. I think I'll just show you.
Please.
Go out in the woods and stomp around and this is my body. I claim my body. This is my body. This is my body. Because that's what shifts the subconscious. It's that enactment of the change. You can go all day talking about reclaiming your body and use all kinds of affirmations, which work with the mind. But the subconscious goes, ho-hum. And then you do this, you enact it, and you get, it needs drama, ritual, or imagery, or all three. So you imagine it being your body, you add drama, you add energy and ritual, and the subconscious goes, oh, doing it different, are we? Okay.
I love that. And I love how you brought in that physical. I work with the people that I work with. I also do the same thing where I bring that physical aspect in, and you were like stomping your feet and punching down to the ground. And I think it's really important to be like, I deserve to be here. I reclaim my space. This is my space. I have a right to be here. I have a right to be here. Yeah. I think that's really important to embody that, to really get physical with it. Because that really brings you into your body. It grounds you into your body. I think that's really important.
Right. I had a therapist who said to me halfway through my work a decade ago or so, he said, from now on, I think you need to realize you have to ground 6 times a day. Yeah. And it's true, because the way we survive is dissociation. And what dissociates is what becomes our wisdom person. That part that gets protected from the abuse because it leaves, that's the part that grows up, becomes spiritual, and learns all these tools, but it doesn't necessarily know how to live in the body. And so something happens, we get triggered, and out goes that part, a resource state. So a part of the grounding is learning how to keep your resourced state present, because the inner kids have been abandoned by adults before.
Yeah.
They need to have that steadiness, and it takes time. Yeah.
And I love that you pointed out that disassociation, because it is true. When we go through that trauma, we very much leave our body. Then we end up spending most of our time up in our head, up in the astral realm, and not in our body. It connects us to the spirit world, and we're off in la la land all the time, but it's not like reclaiming ourselves and this physical presence, in this world. And I think one of the reasons why so many people, want to reach those higher levels is because they're so uncomfortable in their body. I know that's part of the healing work, is, going through that trauma, feeling that trauma, so we are more comfortable in our body. So we can, instead of always reaching out, like higher wisdom and higher consciousness is out, it's a reminder that it's coming back into our bodies and creating a safe space within our bodies, and then elevating the consciousness from there. It's not out there, it's really inside of ourselves. So how do you work with your clients in order to bring them fully in and say, hey, I know we're reaching out here to try to reach this level, but let's embody it here, because in this lifetime, we're here to live this physical life.
Right. And sometimes I'll say, between lives, we get to live the way you want to live. We're in love, we're in consciousness, but we came here for the lessons. So we get to be here and embody them. I think a part of helping people is I really support them in hearing the voices of different parts of themselves. So I get out of talk therapy quickly. And if I'm channeling, we get into something that's an intervention or a process that helps people take their power. Because what you don't have in trauma is agency. There's nothing you can do. You can't stop it. You're little compared to big, or you're intimidated to where you can't stop it. So in the healing of it, I want to support people in evolving this sense of agency of, oh, that's what I'm hearing. Oh, that feeling in my belly. And then they get to understand what that feeling is telling them. And what I think often happens is, as the part that comes in that's been dissociated, that's been rescued really, comes in, then these other part gets triggered, and there's a tendency to blame the inner kids for what's happening. But they had to cope with everything when you weren't there.
Yeah.
And so I think I help build a sense of honor and respect for every one of those coping mechanisms. Because if you can find out the part that's clutching your gut, for instance, or closing your heart, if you can find out how they're trying to help you, because they all are, then you can help them meet the need and change the strategy. But you come to them with love, you come to them with acceptance, because they're little resource states. Some of them are on duty all the time. In empaths, there's these young ones that are out feeling into everybody to find out if they're safe.
Right.
So that's a skill set, but that use of it isn't needed anymore. It's kind of like we help the personality repurpose that energy. Or if it's a 3-year-old trying to run the business, we help them realize what kids do. And then we'll say, do you know what children do? And they often don't. And we say they play and they nap and they snack and they play and they eat and they rest. They play and then they really have to sleep. And then they eat, and that's about it. So it's allowing them to finally go off duty. They don't even know they're on duty because they've had to be on duty from the beginning. They didn't know there was another way. And in terms of the vagus nerve and the perivagal theory that's developing, that means they're always in the sympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic doesn't come on. Sympathetic is fight, flight, freeze, and appease.
Ooh, appease.
Appease.
Thank you for adding that one.
Doesn't that add a lot when I
It
first
does.
heard that? Yeah, we're growing. Yeah. And then the long out breath, parasympathetic, is rest, renew, digest, and regenerate. So they never get to digest. You see? So journaling helps digest. Long out breaths. That can reset the stress regulator on the vagus nerve. It's supposed to come on to handle stress and then come back, rest. But in complex trauma, there's never a rest.
Mm-hmm.
So long out breaths, chanting, singing, gargling, laughing, crying, sounding. That balances that parasympathetic system.
I find that also helps me come into my body too. I like to do that before I do a recording.
Uh-huh.
Back to myself, back to the present moment, back to my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too.
So important.
Then you have your resources. You know, if you're up here, you still have a lot, but if you're embodied, you've got your heart, mind, and your gut. And yeah.
And I love that resourced, self-resourced. I like
Mm-hmm.
that phrase too.
Mm-hmm.
Resourcing self.
Yeah. Yeah. And seeing really all parts of you are a resource, even the scared ones. And if you can find out what resource there are, then everybody has a home in the evolving personality. And you see, it's kind of like gathering up the parts of you that got scattered into current time. I call it reconstituting the core self, or for some people, it's constituting a core self for the first time.
Wow. I imagine you would have to work on a lot of HSPs and empaths doing this work. A lot of sensitive people who, like you said, are used to sending that inner child out to kind of feel out the scene,
Mm-hmm.
to know if it's safe. Can you discuss that a little bit, your work with empaths and,
Mm-hmm.
how you kind of bring them, into center and balance?
Mm-hmm. Beginning with decades of trying to figure out how to keep my own field clear without having to put up walls, and how to be teaching Tantra and being an empath, I wanted to be open without being inundated. And so I've just built a whole lot of skills. I have a 6.5 hour webinar that are these skills. And it's very much about building a sovereign field around your body. So sovereignty rather than protected, because protected gives the power to something you have to protect from. You see, but sovereignty gives agency. And sometimes I'll work with the angels and say, fill my 4-inch layer with angelic light. And I also feel a lot of growth comes from working with the light body. So there's a free video on activating the light body on the website.
Nice.
I got a lot of freebies. I'm at an age I just want to give my legacy away.
Thank you for that.
The first one of the empath is free also. And so it's partly building this sovereign field and also learning how to clear. Like I love to call on a waterfall of light from the heart of the divine as I shower. And I have a spray. Oops. This is called Upright Clarity. Maybe reversed, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I see it. Yep.
Upright Clarity by Stargazer Lee. It's a cosmic mist. It clears my energy. It's amazing. I feel that empaths get to learn the skills I call care and keeping of the chakras. That yes, they do learn to go out, but to learn to, in a sense, it's helping the inner kids that think they have to work so hard at this, realize that their adult has become quite intuitive. She's quite skillful here. She's quite bright. And she has guidance. So you don't need to go out. we can discern what needs to happen from inside. And often it's helping those hard workers give the reins of control to the adult or the higher self.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to circle all the way back to the beginning when your reason for getting into this work. And I know working with a lot of HSPs and empaths that you're running into people who are like, I don't belong here. I'm too sensitive for this place. I don't want to be here. Can you speak to that?
Mm-hmm. I can. I lived it. Yeah, I felt so different from everyone. And I think it's true of so many of us. And the trauma, the incest, the abuse furthers that sense of, because what does a child know except what's wrong with me? Which nothing. But there's no one there to tell them. And so I lost your question. Would you say it again?
How do you work with empaths, HSPs, and sensitives to make them feel like it is okay to be on this planet, that they don't have to feel like I don't belong here.
Yeah. Just,
this is too hard for me. I want out.
well, and part of that is beginning to recognize that their sensitivity, their empath capacity is an amazing skill, and there was no one to teach them how to use it. And so they need to be able to develop these skills so it becomes a resource. I often, I think this piece is worked in channeling, because the Council of 12 would probably help them hear from the heart of their soul what their purpose is here. And for some people who are extremely empathic and got into the darkest of the dark, they're on a mission. And we come along and help them go, you're right, you're not of that. You never were. But you wanted to come and understand it to help to heal it. And those people tend to grow really fast. Once they realize it's not my fault, I'm not like that, I was right all along, often they just really seek that, everything that helps them become themselves.
Does working on that sovereignty, which I know is very important and a huge part of your work, help bring them back, to themselves and to a place of peace around,
Yes.
wanting to be here? And then
Yes.
a second question, how do we become that sovereign being in the world?
So a part of being that sovereign being is to continue to bring your energy back home. At the end of every Zoom class or my mentorship or in person, I have people honor each other, bless each other, and release from every chakra. So the empaths all get their energy back. Everybody releases what they sent and they bring theirs in, and we do it chakra by chakra. It's a beautiful thing to be doing, to keep bringing yourself in. So my sense is, once you're living in your core, you want to be here because you have a center. And what's been so challenging about wanting to be here is everybody else has your center, but you don't. Or everybody else has a little bit of you and you're spread out, but there's not a feeling of mine, home, just me. For an empath or a highly sensitive person to have a moment of just me. It's all it's here, just me and God. That's it. That gives you a reason to live, because you've got yourself. And so the healing of of the trauma and the clearing of that angst come together. If I hadn't done 50 some years of therapy, I wouldn't want to be here either. And I actually didn't for 15 years. And then I got hit by a big rig truck. And by every right, I should have died, and they wouldn't let me. And I got over it. It's like, okay, if I have to be here, I mean, if I can't die that way. So I've made the best of it.
Meant to be here.
Meant to be here.
To do your beautiful work. Awesome. I think personal sovereignty is also really important right now, especially over the last 3 years with everything that we've been going through and the big shift that we've been going through as well. What does your work and the Council of 12 have to say about sovereignty and, reclaiming that, really? Because a lot of people are learning how to be that, how to claim that in their life these days. What are they saying? And for those who are struggling with that, what can they do?
Great question. They would say you are way more than you know yourself to be, and get really curious about who you are when you open your crown to your being, when you open to higher dimensions of yourself. That's when life gets interesting. If life feels too boring and too small, it's because you're staying contained just in this field. But when you open to your spiritual resources and your being on other levels, then you're accessing a lot more resources. It's more fascinating. You can live more on the fourth and fifth dimension. Life is easier.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a beautiful meme once about the dimensions. The third dimension, you've got your stuff and your stuff's got you. The fourth dimension, you got your stuff. It doesn't matter very much. The fifth dimension, what stuff? So as you learn about yourself on these other levels of your own existence, you're able to activate a place that life looks better from.
I love that too, because a lot of NDE experiencers talk about the other side when they look back on their life. There's no emotional connection, no hook, no feelings about what they experience, even though they're seeing this life review. So I like that fifth dimension view of it doesn't matter. And that's exactly what they say. Like when they get on this, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. That's right.
Yeah.
It was just the curriculum down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that is one of the things that helps people in their healing, is to be able to sense it's the curriculum. I'm not being punished. It's not bad karma. It's not because I did something in another life. It's my curriculum. And then what I want to do with that is, okay, soul, you got me into this. Now help me get through it. Right?
Right.
Hands on hips. Soul, it's kind of tough down here. I want some more help.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you pointed out that punitive aspect that people always go to. Why me? The God is a punishing God. Why do these things happen? That sort of thing. I'm glad that you brought that up, that that's not actually the case. It's this learning sphere where we have these lessons to go through, where it's not, God, higher power, or source that's, having these. Sometimes it's just humans and their will getting in the way of our lives.
It takes a dimension that's as dense as the earth dimension for souls to have some of these lessons. And so it's kind of like, okay, I know the water's murky over there, but that's where the gems are planted, so I'm going to go over there. We don't come for fun and fairy tale romance. Sometimes we have that because somehow that serves the lessons, but we come for the lessons. I was listening to Thomas Hubel, and he said, the healing that you find that you absolutely have to go through is not a detour on the path to your purpose. It is the path to your purpose.
Mm. I like that.
It
That's
takes
so
the
true.
shame off. Yeah.
Yeah. That and your joy. What brings you joy also leads to your purpose, not only like your trials and tribulations in this life leading you to your purpose.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how do we come around and find those jewels, as you so lovely pointed out, like while we're in this physical existence, where do we find the jewels, the silver lining in the pain, the lesson in the pain, where we can remove ourselves from it and not have that emotional attachment anymore, and have that lesson instead. What did I gain from that? What did I learn from that? Even if it was, something traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I think part of the answer is we really use each other. I think it's really wise to be learning from and growing with each other and pay each other for our services and keep evolving our psyche. To me, it's the best game in town. Evolve my psyche in ecstatic dance. That makes me happy. And so it's learning from each other. And when I work with spiritual entrepreneurs, I say, get coaches, get consultants. There's a lot of people who know the things that you could take a lot of time to learn, or you can hire someone and save that time to earn income, to pay for hiring.
Mm. I like that. And you do discuss a lot about collaboration being part of the theme of what we're experiencing right now. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the planet is coming to that collaboration. Can you discuss that a little bit more? Because I think that's important, not only with entrepreneurs, but with everyone.
I do too. I feel that we're coming out of an isolation that the lockdowns showed us what isolation is. The positive side, I know some people go, I didn't know I could be that quiet. And the negative side. And it feels that we're emerging into community, that what we're realizing is together we have more possibility of evolving the kind of world we want to live in.
Mm.
Charles Eisenstein says evolving the world that your heart wants to inhabit. So I'm seeing more of this. For instance, I've taught Tantra for 20 some years, and I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and suddenly I didn't plan not to. But I said to Spirit, I really love teaching Tantra. Someone else has to organize it, plan it, do all the logistics, and set it up, and then I'll teach.
Nice.
Took 4 years, and that's what I'm doing. As we were planning it, it's like, I don't want to teach beginners. I want to teach advanced tantric practitioners.
Mm.
We have 18 committed people for 9 months because these people who wanted it that much
Mm-hmm.
made a system for an amazing thing to happen.
Nice. Let's talk about that a little bit, because you do this mentorship with people.
Mm-hmm.
So share with our listeners what that mentorship is.
It's a spiritual mentorship program specifically for advanced healing practitioners, entrepreneurs, people who've built a successful practice or business and are ready to take it to another level, open another set of skills, or evolve it in some way. And so the mentorship comes at that cusp really nicely for people. And we do some work with accessing our soul's purpose, learning how to sit in the sanctuary of our heart to be guided by our heart. I talk about all means of knowing, activating all the means of knowing, kinesthetic, body wisdom, heart, creativity, intuition, spirit, and on up. We work with the chakras beyond the crown. And some
Nice.
people, sometimes the members want to learn to channel. And I keep it to 8 people. 8 weeks, 3 hours each. 8 because it's nice on Zoom. And there's a lot of personal attention and community support of each other. So it's creating a community that helps you. I like this word, femifest, helps you evolve the future that you want to live in.
Mm. And for our listeners who aren't familiar with Tantra, differentiate a little bit between what that beginner work is and then what the intermediate advanced work is that you're now facilitating.
Tantra is a lifestyle. It's a path to enlightenment, and it becomes a lifestyle. So the difference is these are people who know a lot of the work and want to live in a sacred community of people practicing Tantra and other sex positive practices. For me, the Tantra is what restores the sacred to spirit, the sacred to sexuality. It links sexuality and spirituality. And so it allows interactions, and especially charged ones, sexually charged ones, to be a multi-chakra affair. So all the chakras are involved. And the work, a lot of embodiment work, breath work, and other practices, boundaries, communication skills. It allows you to create Kundalini as a resource in the body. And so it's more about that. Good sex is a side product, but it's really about accessing the Kundalini and learning how to bring those serpents up that inner flute and use as a resource. So it advances consciousness if you do it enough.
Thank
and why
you.
not? It's orgasmic.
Yes, yes, it is. I appreciate it in my own life. And breath work, as you were saying, is very much a part of that. And breath work is also a key to that embodiment that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to balancing the parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Breath work will help balance brain chemicals. It's another thing I suggest to survivors or thrivers is that they learn the ways to balance their brain chemicals, how to get oxytocin and serotonin, and there's good things online about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think also another aspect of Tantra is the deities. And you have been channeling the Council of 12 since the mid 80s. Can you share with us a little bit about what that experience was like for you, how that happened, and how you bring that work into the work that you do today?
Sure. So I shared that I started working with guides. And then in 1983, I think, someone who was a mentor of mine and an amazing meditator asked if I'd ever wanted to learn to channel. And I said, no. But something inside me leaped for joy. So he said, well, wait till you're very, very clear. We'll talk about it. And we did after a bunch of rebirthing and other work. And I was really clear. So he agreed to sit and use this invocation he'd been given to open the Akashic records to bring through the highest guides we could bring through. And he could hold meditative space like no one. It was amazing. So when we first started, I used the invocation and a guide came through I knew, and I went, oh, okay. And then I heard, we're going to be quiet now while we clear the channel. She doesn't need that belief anymore. And I'm going, highest wisdom, God, you run this. She doesn't need that belief anymore. And they plucked the garden of my mind of all these beliefs.
Wow.
And then I heard, we are the Council of 12. We have worked with this planet since its inception. And my friend totally perked up. And now he had a lot of questions, and he was very scientifically minded. They answered in that framework in ways I couldn't. So it helped us both now. And then he would sit with me and help me bring them through for myself, they did some training. And then at one point he channeled Archangel Michael and he did some teaching of me. And he had a part of a channeling practice group. So I had people to practice with. And then as soon as I decided to offer it, the people I'd worked with for years really wanted it, really came in.
That's great. And you work with people on advancing their own spirituality with this work. Yes?
I do. I love helping people open to whatever their version of spirituality is. And, you know, we're all as different as snowflakes. So I think our versions are all as different as snowflakes. That's the kind of creatics we have. Let's make it all different. And so it's helping them explore. And it's with the counsel, and I think with good therapy, it's a guide and follow. Try this, how's that? Try this, how's that? How's that land? Because their experience then is guiding how they're opening.
Mm.
You know, I can lead a whole lot of meditations and things, but what I love working with the counsel is they know how to individuate it just to that person. And it's fun to watch them, and they're so kind.
Nice. What are some of the things that the Council of 12 has said about what we're experiencing now on the planet?
There's a great opening. There's a great opening. Things are possible that haven't been possible before. Where in the past, we might have been working with someone to clear a past life of possessions or cult activity or something. We clear it for that person, but now we're able to clear it for everyone involved. There's so much more permission for the involvement of the higher realms in so many people's evolution. So it's like the Lightworkers are, bring it on. If you can lift me higher, please do. I would like life to be a little more pleasant. Beam me up.
Yeah.
And so that permission is allowing more evolution to happen with people. Plus, all the planets just went direct in February, and everybody's like shot out of a cannon. And so you want to work with guidance, you know. It's if you feel like you're flying through the air, ask for some angels to accompany you.
What advice do they have for what we're experiencing right now? Like, what can we learn right now during all of these upgrades?
You can learn that the encodement of who you really are exists already. That in all the growth, and probably everyone can reflect on this, in all the growth you've gone through that seemed to change you so much, didn't you just become more essentially you? You see? It's like the David in the sculpture. Someone asked Michelangelo, how did you find this David in there? He said, well, it was always there. I just carved away the stone. So in a way, we're just releasing what's not us so that we can actually have what is us and live in our core, which is where the Kundalini is. The Kundalini, the tantric work opens the core, makes it accessible. And then we live in our core, it's our seat of power. And when we bring our parts back, we bring them into the core, and that supports integration. That's so very different than what you named of how, you know, we tend to get way out there. It's way in here.
Yeah, like that integration. I love that word.
Yeah. It's interesting. You can bring parts and pieces back for a long time and work with them. And integration isn't something you make happen. It's one day they're ready, they're integrated. One day, 4 of my inner parts, because I had a lot of incest. I had a lot of parts. 4 of them sitting on the edge of the bed, and they went, you know what? If you come here, we kind of fit. And another one went, we think I may fit here. Oh, I'm here. And they became one.
Sweet.
Takes about that long. Yeah.
Nice. What advice would you and your channeling give people who are struggling right now?
Tune into spirit. There are guides and angels willing to come every single time you call. And you might ask Divine Mother to hold you in her heart. Divine Mother has this vast heart. It's like a great womb. So one of my favorite prayers is, Great Mother Goddess, please take me back into your great heart womb and cook me up again. Recreate me as if I'd always been wondrously loved. The quantum healing that we're able to do now can borrow that wholeness from the future and bring it here. May not be that we live it all the time, but we taste it, you see. You can also, if there was a time of being really whole in the past, you can pour that into now, because there's no time. And that helps to make now better. Yeah.
I like that. How about a tip for disconnecting from all of the drama that's playing out in the collective and coming back to yourself? What advice do you and counsel have around that?
Well, what helped me disconnect was I realized a lot of people were talking and nobody was listening. So when nobody's listening, it's time to stop talking. And I suggest to people that it is working its way out. We don't need to know the mystery. That's God's job. And the way we can contribute is to be a point of light, to be in our truth without needing to change anybody, to really be in our truth, be a place through which spirit can work.
I love that.
Yeah.
Be in our truth and be in a place where spirit can work.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I think that applies to the separation that we're experiencing right now too. You know, people are worried about the separation that's going on. You know,
It's healing. It's healing. I know of a group that's connected to New Culture, which is always trying to find new technologies for life, they're having conversations about how do we bridge the gap. And in my world, I've had people on every side of these affairs that I stay connected to. So I think that we have to disbelieve in what we don't want. What divide? Oh, we all just looked at different movies for a while. But I know these people's hearts. We're all wanting what's best. Yeah. Well,
I like that, remaining, you know, in a place of compassion and allowing all of these different aspects to still play in your life and stay connected to all these things.
yes.
You know, yet you also pointed out that I want to point out also, to disconnect from that belief of separation and focus on, which you so beautifully pointed out, a culture, you know, different cultures around the world looking at ways, you know, to come together, to be in cooperation and collaboration with each other. And I think like you said, the more we can focus on those things, you know,
exactly.
the more of those things we will see.
Exactly. And I think of how countries that have been war-torn heal. After World War II, my brother got involved with a community in Germany that was a doctor and PhD wife that created this evangelist academy, and they would bring seemingly opposing forces together with an agreement. They would sit down together all week, period. And they found common ground. So it's already evolving, and we're that kind of creature. I have such a trust that if we keep tuning into spirit and we live from our heart, we'll move past this.
Mm-hmm. And that in itself helps us, heal our trauma. Yes, and the trauma that we've experienced recently, because I think everybody came out with a little or a lot of trauma from what just happened over almost 3 years.
Like a war-torn country.
Yeah.
Things got bombed. When I went back to California, I grieved over the impact of the pandemic and how many stores were closed and restaurants were lost and favorite hangouts.
Mm-hmm.
It was, whoa, much more than where I live in the mountains.
Yeah, it has been a loss. And I'm glad you used the word grieve, because a lot of people don't realize that we are grieving the loss of what we had as we're coming into this new way of being, our new normal.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that grief process that everybody's going through.
It's so important. And to recognize that grieving isn't only sadness, because the portal out of sadness is anger. That's how you move beyond sorrow. You move through anger, and then adaptation, and then acceptance. And people are often so afraid to do the anger.
Yeah, thank you for that. The anger, the adaptation. Those are two things that people don't talk about.
Right.
The acceptance. Yeah.
And some people, you tell them you need to do your grieving, and they want to go, I'm sick and tired of doing my grieving. That's grieving. Let's do that. Tell me about sick and tired. Yeah, you don't like this, do you? And again, I want to help that get enacted. It's kind of like what has never been able to get said gets said. It finishes things. Because I think where we're hung up in trauma is where there's incompletions. So if you can find a way to finish an incompletion, and since there's no time and quantum healing is possible, you could just make it come out different. 3 angels stepped into the scene and took those men right out of there. And then this lovely goddess came and held me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that aspect about quantum healing. We don't, a lot of people don't look at, that quantum aspect, that the different layers of it, the different things that we can bring into our healing to help us, as you do in the healing that you facilitate, and many other healers, bring in to their healing work as well. I think that's important. Let's circle back around to that actually and talk about, these different aspects, that we can bring into the healing practice, to be able to help us out, like bringing in those angels to take out those men and that goddess to come in. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because I think that's important. And we have many different things at our fingertips for healing. It's not just one way.
Absolutely. Very, very often when I do satsang, which is a gathering of healers, I'm channeling either online or in person. Very, very often, one of the first things the guides say is, we're here. There are many, many radiant beings who've been working through the centuries to help you with these earth lives. And we love doing it, so keep us busy. You offer up a really potent prayer, and someone else offers one that's a match, we love finding a way to bring those together. Almost. Oh. You see, there's no need on the part of any of spirit for anything to come out different. And so there are resources, there's that word again, that want to be utilized. So I'm asking something of my guides a couple hundred times a day.
Yeah, same.
Never too much. It says in a lot of scriptures, pray unceasingly.
Yeah, and an ask is a form of prayer.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think we forget the whole team that we have on the other side that's just waiting to help us. They're waiting to engage with us and help us on this journey. It doesn't have to be hard.
Well, and I have a sense, most of us wise souls, before we came in, we went, okay, I'll take on this one. Here's the promises I want. And we set up the guides we want to, and if I get really lost, what kind of intervention are you going to do? Are you going to make sure that you find me? I think we set up some fail-safe situations. And then we go through life like there's no one out there. And they're like,
and then when they show up, it's just magic. You realize it's a collaboration.
A collaboration. Putting in a specific order feeds the collaboration. So I told you about when my channeling came in. The order I put in at the beginning of that year was, I'm doubling my income this year. People paid twice as much for channeling as they did for the massage I was using to augment my therapy practice.
Wow.
I doubled my income. So if I hadn't put a challenge to the universe, because I kept working it, if I hadn't put that challenge there, it might not have happened. That's the collaboration. And to use these times to really connect up and in. And people will say, well, I'm cynical. That's okay. I was cynical. Be cynical. I have said, there was a time, having been raised kind of in religious service, there was a time when I went, okay, God, I don't know what's true, but nothing in that church I just worked in is true. If that's religion, I don't want it. If you really exist, you're going to have to prove it to me. I'll wait. Obviously, it happened.
Yes, for those of you out there who are skeptical, put the challenge out.
Yeah.
What happens? Just give it a try.
Yeah.
As Evalena did.
You can call in your highest, brightest, clearest, most radiant beings of light. Always use an invocation. And then sit with them and get still. Ask what they want to share with you. Sometimes it comes in light. Sometimes it's energetic. Sometimes it's light language. And sometimes it's a still small voice.
Beautiful. Evalena, this has been such a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much. You also have a special discount for our listeners today, 50% off your Living as an Empath course. And all they have to do is use the code Raise the Vibe to get that. You want to tell them a little bit about what this is?
So it's a series of classes of all the things I had to learn to get my field sovereign from lifetimes of all kinds of things, that possessions and such. So I learned so many tools that I call this my tips and tools and techniques for living as an empath in an insane world. Sometimes I call it troubled, but insane, I think, works. And so there's one piece about filling with your light, and then filling the body, and then filling the 1-inch layer, and then the 4-inch layer, and the 8-inch layer, filling your subtle bodies, learning to nestle them around you, learning the energy management of the chakras, and how to release all those places you go out to, and learn to do your reconnaissance from in your heart and in your gut, to trust, and sometimes helping the younger parts recognize that your adults brought you to a really good place. She's taking care of you. Yeah. So it's just more and more levels of those tools and techniques.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with our audience. I appreciate that. It's beautiful.
I'll give you one simple one. If you're with someone and you're not wanting to feel their energy, ask Goddess to stand between you. Or an angel.
It's just that simple. I love that.
This has been such a joy to be with you today.
It has. Thank you so much, Evalena. And everyone, please, find her on Facebook, Instagram. She's on YouTube, and her web address is evalenarose.com. You can find her there. Lots of free content available to you. Evalena, what is a jewel of wisdom that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
The desires of your heart are God speaking to you. When you tune in to desires that stay and stay and stay, and you ask to be guided and you ask to be shown, that's it. That's how you're shown. To live from the heart of your heart, and you're on your path, and all the resources for your life are put on that path. It's where you'll find them, the path of the heart.
Thank you, Evalena. That's lovely. Just like the energy of this entire interview, your energy is lovely, so full of love and compassion. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, I'm Liz Peterson, and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Raise the Vibe with Liz. And my webpage is liz'shealingtouch.com. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day, everyone. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Bye.